Hello everybody. In this tutorial we're going to learn an easy way to override the equals and hash code methods on custom objects. This will mainly be useful when we want to include our custom objects in collection classes such as lists or sets. We'll start with an empty example project and note that I have included and I will be using the Apache Commons Lang library. There's a video where I explain a bit more about that, but I'm going to assume you know how to include it in your project. Also, we're going to create a new package, and although this is not necessary for this tutorial, I will usually do some things that I consider to be best practices, even though they're not completely relevant to the tutorial itself. So we'll write a package called com.example.points. There, we will quickly create a new main class where we'll test our code. And we're going to create our custom object, the one that we're going to be working with, which we'll call it a point. This class, we won't make it public, we'll actually make it final in order to make it package private and non-subclassable. I'll explain that further on, but for now, we just add a couple of instance fields, and we'll make them private, and we'll make them final also. Private final, double y. And we make a public constructor, public point, double x, double y will be the parameters of our constructor, and we will set those parameters inside, like so. Now our class is ready, and we go back to the main code, to the main method, and here we'll make a bit of space, and we're going to write a code where we include our point, our custom object, into a list, and we're going to see that it doesn't work very well, and I'll explain why later. So we start by writing a list of points, list of point, and we'll call it special points, equals new array list points. And to this list, well, as you can see, we have some imports missing, so this is going to tell us to import array list from JavaUtil. And here we're going to be asked to import list from JavaUtil also. Now we're ready. Now we're going to add a couple of points to this list. So we'll say special points dot add, and here we'll place a new point, 1, 1. That's going to be our first point. Then I'll copy this and paste it, and we'll create a new point, 2, 2. Well, let's make it 2, 5. And now our list has 2 points in it. And we can show that system.out.println, and we're going to say size special points dot size. Okay, I'll save that and I'll run it quickly, and size 2. So we have 2 points. Let's continue. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a point p, new point 1, 1. So let's say we have a list of special points, and now we receive a new point, and we want to know if that point is already included. Intuitively, the answer should be yes. Is this point p included in special points? Yes, because there's a point 1, 1 in our list. So we're going to test that with an if. So we're going to say if special points dot contains our point p, then we're going to print out, I'll copy this so I don't have to type it all. Then we're going to print out, yep. And if it's not included, then we're going to print out, nope. If we run this, we actually see nope. So this is our problem. Our new object, when we compare it to the objects that are inside the list, it tells us that it is not included. Why? Because this point is not equal to either of these points, because the equals method that it is using is not the one we actually want. What it's testing is this object exactly, is the object in memory referenced by this pointer in the list? And that the answer to that is no, because P is a point object, but this point object, which we never gave it a variable name, is a different object, because both were created with the new operator, so they're different pointers, different objects and memories. That's why the answer is no. So how do we fix this? To fix this, we have to override the equals and hashcode methods of the point class so it compares points in the way that we find intuitive. So we're going to go over the point and we're going to do that. How do we do that? We say override. This is an annotation. And we'll start with the hashcode method. So we say public int hashcode. And this does not accept any parameters. And we'll return 0 for now, just to show you something. So this overrides annotation makes us, forces us to override a method of a superclass. And this little green arrow tells us that this overrides Java lang object hashcode. So that's good. Now, how are we actually going to override it? Well, theoretically, you could write this code on your own, but I don't recommend it because it's not that easy to get this hashcode method correct. So that's where Apache Commons lang comes in. We're actually going to use a class or object in Apache Commons lang that was designed exactly for this. So what we're going to do is we're going to write new hashcode builder. And there you see that this is org Apache Commons lang hashcode builder. So there it is. So we'll use that one. And well, although you could put some parameters here, it's not necessary. We'll just start with this. How do you make a hashcode builder? What we have to do now is we have to give the hashcode builder the information that we want to be included in the quote definition of our object, close quote. So what is the definition of our object? What makes a point a point? In our case, it's the instance variables. In your case, it might be different, but for us, it's x and y. So we're going to give x and y over to the hashcode builder in order for it to calculate a hashcode using that information. So how do we do that? We use the append. So we're going to append x and append y. Those are the two fields that we want to use. You can append as many as you want. And when you're done, you use the method toHashcode. And then it will calculate a hashcode in a way that's probably better than whatever we could write. So we save and we're halfway done. The second step, again, override. Sorry, second time I do the same mistake. Override, and the second method is public boolean equals. And it accepts an object obj. We'll call it obj, but it has to be an object. And we'll return null just to show something. So, oh, not null, actually false. But there we have a skeleton. Now I want to show you that this is correct, but if you had actually, we want to compare, that's what the equals stands for. We want to compare this object to another. So one might think, since this is a point, shouldn't we be receiving a point into the method? Well, no, because that would not override the equals method of the superclass. And hash set, for example, hash set and lists would use the other one anyway. So if I had written point here, the override annotation will tell me I'm actually making a mistake. That's why the override helps us. So we use object. And what do we do here? This is a bit different from a bit longer than the hash code. So we're going to start with some quick tests. First of all, if that object is null, then it cannot be equal to this object. So we return, sorry about that, false. That's test one. Second quick test. If that object is actually equal. Oh, I'm very sorry about this. This is actually null. I was thinking ahead. So if that object is equal to this, then not only are they not only do they represent the same point, they are actually the same object in memory. So it has to be the same object. So return true. And third of all, quick test. Now we know that the object that we're comparing to is not null, and it's not this same object. So now we want to ask ourselves, is it even a point? So for that, we write object.getClass, and we ask, is it equal to our getClass? So here we could write this.getClass, or we could simply write getClass. They're equivalent. So actually we want the opposite check. If the object obj is not even a point, then we return false. Now that we're done with those three checks, we know that the other object is not null, it's not this same object in memory, and it is a point. And since it is a point, we can cast it into a point variable. So we'll say point RHS, right hand side, it stands for right hand side, will be equal to our object, but casted into a point. So now we have the same object, but now as a point. And now that's as a point, we can start to use the Apache Commons lang. So what do we do now? Now we return a new equals builder. And in the same way as before, what we're going to do is use the append method. On the left hand side, well, it should not matter what order, which one goes first. But on the left hand side, we'll put ourselves. So here, what we're going to do is we want to say what information should the equals builder use to compare the right hand side object, which used to be called obj, right, to this object. So we need to compare the x's. So the right hand side .x has to be equal to our x. And the second piece of information in our case is the y. Our y has to be equal to the right hand side's y. And those, for the point, for our class, are the only crucial pieces of information. If those two pieces of information turn out to be equal, then our 2 points are equal. So we finish in the same way as before with the hash code with is equals. We save this. Now we're done. Now we can go back to the main method and we could test this code. If you remember, we asked, does special point contain p, where p was actually a different object in memory, but which represented the same point as one of the points that was in special points? We got the answer no. We didn't want that. But now if we play again, we get the answer yeah. So that's the effect of overriding hash code and equals in a custom object. And you should always keep this in mind when you create a custom object. If you ever want to use it in a list or in a set, and you're going to be using the contains or some sort of comparison between your objects, then you should always keep in mind the fact that you have to override the equals and hash code methods, and you shouldn't reinvent the wheel. It's very easy to get these two wrong, so what we're actually going to do is let Apache Commons lang do it for us. So I hope you liked the tutorial, and stay tuned on the channel for the next one, and see you all later.